Joining us on the show once again today is someone you, of course, all know best as the head coach of the Tennessee women's program, a Tennessee team headed back to the Sweet 16 following their victory over Pepperdine in round two. It is, of course, head coach Alison Ojeda joining us once again. Coach, it is always good to see your smiling face. Welcome back to the show. Of course, congratulations to you and the Vols on reaching another Sweet 16. How are you feeling as you get ready for the weekend?
I mean, I already felt amazing, and now I get to sit in front of you and talk about this again. So I'm pumped. I feel fantastic, and so does our team. We just got done with the morning hit, and yeah, team feels amazing.
Yeah, and
Thank you
obviously,
for having me,
no,
by the way.
it is always a pleasure. And obviously, I want to ask all about your 2025 season. But to start in reverse order, just to have a
Sure.
group that you're working in so many new singles pieces. Obviously, you've got the seniors up top. But for this group to band together as quickly as they did and reach another Sweet 16, what does that say about this group? Why do you think that's been possible?
I mean, this group is resilient, so that's something we learned back in June because I had our son in July, and so I asked. We had 7 new players coming, and I asked if they would come in June for summer session, just so we could. I wanted to teach what Tennessee tennis was all about, and I wanted to teach it at a time when they had time to then go home and kind of regroup and then come back understanding what the expectations were. And so we found out in June just how much this group loved to play tennis. We obviously had there's a lot to learn and a lot to understand, but you knew their love for being on the tennis court and the respect they had for one another while they were working hard. We saw those two things in June. So that gave us some pretty exciting hope. But winning was never something are always going to talk about winning to a certain extent, but it wasn't going to be our focus. Whereas last year we could focus on that a little bit differently, and so development back in the summer and then the fall was huge, and then all of a sudden the team just kind of we because to be honest, until recently we've been one spot short in my opinion, and so we've been trying to figure it out, and we've won some and lost some while figuring it out, and now I feel like we've figured it out.
What was it like to navigate the SEC this year from afar, just watching every weekend? I mean, again, whether it's Texas A&M coming your way, you've got all the different travel partner
Have,
combinations. There was no
have you
weekends
ever?
off.
Yeah, none. Have you ever been to a Formula One race?
I have not, but
It's
many a
like
YouTube.
whoosh, like, and then they stop in the pit for a rest, and even that is like, that was the SEC this season. I mean, it was incredible. Even Missouri, you go to Missouri, and
Mhm.
that is not an off day anymore. Like so it was intense, and man, it prepared us for this last weekend better than anything else we could have done.
Do you I mean, obviously, it sounds like the answer is no. Is there any regret? You guys were the only conference who elected, hey, let's play everyone. Just right off the
Right.
bat, let's not skip any weekends. And obviously, coming into the season, I'm sure that impacted how you scheduled the first 2 months of the year. Is that something you would hope the SEC continues to do moving forward?
It is at the moment, it is.
Okay.
This time next year, it'll be good to get a feeling with 2 seasons under our belt in terms of traveling and figuring all that out. Because I will say, if you have a tiny little injury, there is not time to fix that. So that's one thing. So the weekend off after our conference tournament was critical for us. We were able to take a few days and just rest our bodies. But I voted for us to be able to play all 16 teams. I think. Um, I mean, if you talk about any great in any sport, they're always going to suggest that you play the best possible competition you can. And so, in order for us to play ourselves, I think it allowed for teams to get upsets that you might not have had on your schedule otherwise. And so, I think the SEC is incredibly tough because we played everyone. Also, because we played everyone, uh, it's hard. I
Yeah,
mean,
no.
we went into the conference tournament seeded 7, and we were 10 in the country, and so yeah, it's tough, and but it's amazing and exciting. And to me, if you wanna be one of the best teams in the country, you got to beat them along the way.
Yeah, no, there is no doubt every SEC school came into this NCAA tournament calloused and very
Yeah,
prepared for whatever was thrown at them. And, for your group, I guess we'll start with the seniors. Obviously, to have Elza, Catherine at the top of the lineup this year, what have they meant to this group and for them to just play a full year in those top two spots? I don't have to tell you how difficult that is to ask that burden of them this season. Just how have they responded to that?
I mean, for both of them to be first team all SEC, I think tells you that. That's huge. Thankfully, Kat's only a junior, so she's got one more year of
Oh, did I say
eligibility.
senior? Look, it's
That's all right.
it's May. The
All,
brain's broken.
all good. I think she's done with finals pretty soon, so
Yeah.
she may as well be a senior. But
Yeah.
no, I mean, Elza's done an outstanding job. Going back to last May, Elza sat on our couch in this office and told us what her summer plans were. And as she's telling us the summer plans, I can see this look on her face where it's like, please don't arrange your summer for what you think I want for you to do. Like, you need to do what's best for you. And so to her credit, she took the summer and enjoyed being at home with her family, and she stayed in shape. And man, she came back ready to go. So from the beginning in the fall, she had to go through qualies of All Americans, but since then she's just been on a run. And so I think to her credit, she's been playing at a very high level all season long. There's still a little, adjustment here or there that she can make from a mental standpoint that I think will really elevate her game. But she's been good. So no matter who we played against in the SEC, we knew that she was going to be competitive at that spot. Um, and then same with Kat. There is a game style that Kat struggles with a little bit, and to her credit, she has developed and worked on that. And so now, like, again, she can compete against anyone in the country. And so for her to have the coaches and the conference vote on her to be first team all SEC, there was only three other players that got that vote, and she's one of them. I think that says a ton about where they were at 1 and 2.
Yeah, it's again, you graduate so many different players, you don't miss a beat at the top of the lineup, and that's a
Well,
credit to the two of them. And obviously, look, it's more than a two-person team, and it takes so many different people stepping up in so many different moments as you have. And yet, anyone who looks at the record, 16-3 in dual match play, Leila Brites Riso here in her junior season, and to go from 11-6 last year to go 2-1 in her first season of play. What allows any player, obviously in this instance, Layla in particular, to make that sort of leap?
I would say commitment to whatever their individual craft is and their individual goals are. Layla has always loved tennis. She's always loved training, but she's also always loved winning points, hitting winners. And I don't have to tell you, I mean, you probably know more stats than anybody out there, but we certainly don't win tennis matches because of the amount of winners we hit. And so I think a couple years of just honest conversations. And last year, I'm not positive what her SEC schedule was, but I know that when she had to go in, she won. And she had a huge match clinch against Vandy, a huge clinch against Auburn last year. So she's never shied away from the spotlight. The key for us as a coaching staff was just to make sure that she was willing to stay disciplined throughout a match. And so in May after the season, there was a big conversation because, like you said, we had 5 players graduate, and so we knew she was going to be a huge role player. She was only going to be one of 3 returners, and we needed her to, instead of taking a leadership role, we needed her to make sure she was staying accountable for herself because this was going to be her first season to be a steady player in the lineup. And man, she took that conversation very well because it was a tough conversation. And she just ran with it. And so to her credit, she's always been a hard worker, but she is just so disciplined. And you used to be able to find a little bit of hole in her forehand, and you can't anymore. And so now players get frustrated trying to figure out what in the world, kind of like Kat Ollia last year, like what in the world did you do to beat this player? And that's Layla. So she started at 5, worked her way to 4, at 3, and I mean, she's been outstanding.
What is your approach? A couple of tangents off that because I do agree she's been outstanding. I'm again so many different experiences for you. I'm sure so many different players. It's a different approach with everyone. Having those hard conversations, like going up
Yeah.
to a 20-year-old kid and saying, "Hey, like you fell a little short here from a work ethic standpoint." Is that something? Can you be that blunt with a player in 2025? Can you have those sorts of conversations? Are those conversations? I mean, are you looking for players who are willing to receive that sort of conversation at Tennessee?
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's something that's discussed on the front end in recruiting because I also want to make sure they know that they can um, positively criticize me.
Okay.
Like if there's something that I need to do better or different for you as a tennis player, I need you to be honest and let me know. Like you can't just spring that on me, and we're certainly not going to we will never use something like that as an excuse.
Sure.
But yeah, like if I can learn from you as a tennis player, then I need to learn from you. And so it's going to be mutual and it's going to go both ways. But I would say respect first and foremost is what our team is all about. And come I mean, with respect, you got to be able to communicate and you got to be able to do it in a way that allows the other person to receive the information that they're hearing. And so, no, I don't think I could just randomly go up to someone and say, your work ethic is horrific. But I think that over the course of a few different practices, and we do a lot of film stuff, and so the great thing about film is I don't have to be the jerk. The the computer does that, and so when we just replay it, they see their own decisions, and they're like, oh, so yeah, but for sure, to me, no matter how good you are as a tennis player, if that ability to listen and be coachable isn't there, then it's going to be tough. Not just because of me, but because our senior, Elza, she's going to tell you how it is. She'll be more blunt than I will.
Yeah.
She'll tell you how it is.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's nice to have a player who feels
It's
comfortable doing that. Yeah,
amazing.
that's what leadership is all about, certainly.
It's
And
amazing.
in that same vein, breaking habits of a player trying to make a technique switch this late in their career. Like, I think about the technique switches I made, not to compare my game to the games you're working with, but like, I don't think I changed a grip after 12 years old because it's just like, this is kind of what we're working with here. Let's adjust accordingly. How, is that something you pursue? Like, are you someone who is going to tinker with the grip, going to tinker with the backswing very frequently at this point of a college player's career? I look at all the players who are popping on the pro circuit, and I just like I can't remember anyone coming to college and the technique looking different. I guess what's
Right.
your approach to that?
My approach is I'm not going to mess with technique much. The backswing, actually, we will talk about that at some point in someone's career, but that's literally just the idea of shortening the backswing.
Okay.
But the reason I'm not going to really mess with technique too much is because you come in, this isn't football where you're redshirting, and so with us, you're playing. And if you're going to actually change technique, number one, at this stage in your career, I would imagine a coach has already tried it before. And a lot of coaches out there are a heck of a lot smarter and better than me. So if they had that opportunity at a younger age and it didn't work, then I'm not sure why I would think that I could do it. And then two, like in order to really change something, I think that results play a part in that change. And so if you're focused on winning the next match, or your mom and dad are focused on why are you losing? Well, I just changed my forehand grip. Then I think it prolongs what you're trying to get to. So no, I'm not a huge fan of making changes. Tiny little tweaks here and there for sure we will.
Yeah.
But I'm certainly not going to um, change someone's grip. But backswing for sure. And part of playing in the SEC, if you're playing at 1-2, that ball's coming fast.
Yeah.
And if that ball comes fast and you have too big of a swing or your grip is off, then we're going to exploit that. And so we will certainly do our homework and scout and make sure that if someone has a grip that struggles against pace, and there's a lot of forehands right now that struggle against pace, we're gonna go after it. And that's where the coachability comes in as well, because there's not too many players who we're going up against who we're just better than. We're working hard to make sure that we win points.
Yeah, no, I love to hear that. And people might think I'm alluding to Elsa's forehand. I'm not. I want to know the reason I asked all this is because when I watched Maeve play for the first time, I actually had to go back and check the roster and be like, is that Alana? Like, I thought Alana graduated. I was like, like, I was pretty sure it was the same play. I was like, hold on. Like, I
Oh,
think
with
my brain,
Conley, the lefty?
or did I say, yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, Conley.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like, hold on. I was like, I need to go back and look. Like, my brain
yeah.
might be broken here. And I watched Conley play, and I was just like, oh, I what? And I'm just curious if you
Yeah.
see that same similarity.
So actually when she came, Conley was looking to use that forehand so much, and we love Conley's backhand. I'm like, would you please use that backhand? Like use your lefty forehand to get a backhand and go. And so yeah, like the one thing that Alana developed here that we loved was her lefty kick
Yeah.
on the do side. And so that's been something we've been trying to get Conley to use. But yeah, Conley, that kid's savvy.
Mm-hmm.
You might think she's gonna attack and she throws in a little dropper and you just get frustrated competing against her. Elsa's forehand though, now that you say that, that is something we did change that grip last year. And yeah, and it helped.
Yeah.
She still occasionally goes back to it, but yeah, that is one change we did make because opponents were able to exploit her forehand.
Yeah. No, I I just remember because I called the Ohio State match kickoff weekend. I remember, again, Conley was one of the last on court, and I was like,
Yeah.
I swear I did this 3 months ago. I was like, something's never changed. Like, did we just play this match? But
Yep.
no, it's just across the board again, good tennis from everyone. And one thing that is really, it feels like, fallen into place late in the season is the doubles. How much has
Yeah.
that been an emphasis for you guys in practice this season? And again, having finally settled on the three teams, how confident are you with that point for this weekend?
It's a point that I will say that we need to win,
Yeah.
and we are excited about winning it. Just as much as they are, they're darn good in doubles. But yeah, I think like I was telling you earlier, we've been, in my opinion, we've been up until recently just one spot short of being really, really good. And so because of that, we did have to put a bit more emphasis on doubles because if we could get the doubles point, we knew at 1, 2, 3 we would compete against anyone in the country. And 4, 5, and 6, we knew they were going to work hard. We just weren't sure where we were at yet tennis wise. And now, yeah, now as of the last couple weeks, I feel really good with our doubles. We made that adjustment with Elza and Shirai. Kat and Layla just those two just click. I mean, she made a comment recently that they don't even have to talk; they just know what they're going to do, and that's amazing. There's a lot to be said for chemistry. So I feel really good with our doubles, and then yeah, and now for the first time all season, I feel really good about all 6 spots in singles.
Yeah. No, it's how long did it take? It felt like this year, certainly looking, and I have the numbers in front of me. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different players played five, 6 different players played six, 4 different players played four, 3 different players played three. Shout out to you. We're hitting
Man.
all the permutations and combinations this year. I mean, you got to try it, just so you
I
know.
mean,
Well,
everyone's had a chance,
yeah,
that's for sure.
was that more by necessity or just tinkering, saying we could get better at the margins here? Why play so many different combinations this season?
I would say necessity. I think for me, tinkering happens in the fall, tinkering happens early January, but then I mean, it doesn't take a genius to know the more you can play with someone, the better it's gonna feel,
Yeah,
and that does matter. And so communication matters, that type of stuff. Understanding this is the play we call, but if I get this sitter forehand, forget the play, I'm doing this.
yeah,
And so I think that happens when you get to play with someone a lot. And so for us, I mean, I'm super thankful that we made that run last year because our 1, 2, and 3, they understood why we kept making changes because they know that I mean, we've been so excited about this weekend for a long time. And so, and you can go into this weekend feeling good, but if you're not solid at every spot, it doesn't matter if you feel good. You're probably shaking hands at the end of the match and talking about going home. And so, so our team understood, our top part of the team, they understood all the changes and the amount of trust that our entire team has shown towards our coaching staff and towards the players themselves has been huge because otherwise we couldn't have made those adjustments that have led to us now feeling really good about where we're at.
Do you feel, despite all of the roster turnover, a clear connective thread from last year's success carrying over to this season? Like, does it translate that quickly?
It does translate. And I would say the biggest reason it translates is 4 of our players who are new this year, they came to our matches last spring. So I mean, they were literally in the car on the road going asking, "Hey, can we get basketball tickets?" And so I mean, they had so many unofficial visits so that they could watch our basketball games while they were here on campus watching us play. So they felt a part of that. And then and then we make the run at NCAAs and huge credit to you too. Everyone's watching you and listening to you, and you guys spoke highly of Tennessee's women's team last year, and so that made people listen and made people talk about us a little bit in a way that maybe only us kind of insiders had talked about before. So yeah, I think they felt a part of it, and then they came in, and like I said, they came in June. So we finished, and literally a week later, we were starting with those new players. So I'm still trying to close out stuff from the year before. They were around when everyone's trying to pick out rings. So yeah, they very much have been a part of it. But with that said, the experience is certainly it's new. You've got Maeve, Maeve and Vanessa. They're not new to college tennis, but they're new to postseason play. And then the other 5 freshmen are brand new. One of them literally coming in January, and she's not played on hard courts until she got here for the first time. So there's a lot of newness, making sure it's going to sound silly, but making sure the rackets are strong, making sure their grips are ready, like things like that we've had to pay attention to that is not normal from last year, but But yeah, but in terms of the discipline, that's carried over.
No, let the
And
record show. The reason we talked about your team so frequently is they gave us a lot to talk about. There was plenty of fun to be had. And by the way, I think I booked a trip just for you guys to know you're going to go to Stillwater before you go to Charlottesville, just because you haven't been there in a little bit. I just want to make
that's
sure that,
perfect. The
yeah,
girls want to get their nails done again,
yeah,
so we'll
make
do
sure you
that.
haven't forgotten what that trip was.
Like,
So just, again, throw that on there. I'm trying some new questions here this
sure.
season for all the coaches. Got to keep it fresh for all of us. That's how you keep the
Yeah.
relationship spicy. What's one thing you wish you had budgeted more time for in practice this season?
Oof. If there was a way for us to add more time to the day, for sure I would have budgeted more time to having a coach on court during practice as a like match play.
Okay.
Every Wednesday we compete. But because we were like, I mean, those numbers you called out, that's a lot. It's even more than I realized. But it's when you have six different people at six trying to figure it out. I do think that if we could have somehow freed up some more hours in the day, then we could have had a coach in a one-on-one setting instead of, team practice.
Sure.
And that would have been amazing. It would have been very helpful.
Yeah. No, it's again, I'm always interested at this point of the season. What's the one thing coaches adjusting as you all continue to do? What's the match you learned the most about your team this year?
Oh, I mean, there's a handful of them. The match Conley clinching against Ohio State,
Mm.
I learned a lot about our team. Um, the Texas Tech match, to be honest, I thought that was, I don't know that anyone knew that Texas Tech was going to do what they've done all year long. And when they came in and we saw them hitting, we're like, oh, wow, this team they are ripping balls everywhere. And Adam, he did an amazing job at Furman. Obviously, he's going to continue to do a good job there. But I learned a lot about our team being willing to stay disciplined in that match because we didn't try and go bigger than they were. And that to me is big because you really only have Elza and Vanessa who are hitting big flatter balls. So I learned a lot on that day. And then you got the Ohio State match where I just learned a lot about Conley. I mean, um, the public doesn't know this, but literally that morning, Matthias and I spoke and we called up Conley and said, hey, are you ready to play? And she said, yep. And I said, it very well could come down to you. And she said, I'm ready. And that match could have gone either way. But with that said, she battled the entire time. So I learned a ton about us there. I learned a lot about us when we played Stanford. I think that a lot of teams go into the Stanford match, and if you're not used to playing them, they're Stanford, right? Like they are college tennis and championships, and we didn't let the name affect us. We certainly respected them as we do all of our opponents, but I learned a lot about us then, and I think that goes back to last season with our top three. So yeah, there's been quite a few matches. The
Yeah.
most recent one I will say though is Sarai this weekend. I learned a lot about Sarai this weekend.
Oh, I love that. No, like there have been a lot of fun ones. And by the way, you, Ohio State, Texas Tech, and NC State, is that going to end up as the highest average end of year ranking for any kickoff weekend ever? Like
It's got to be.
that's
It's got to be.
crazy.
It's crazy.
And you're right. Watching it, I had the privilege of calling that. Like you kind of knew in the moment where it's like, wait a second, like this is
They're
really
good.
yeah. What's going on here?
Yep, they're
Yeah.
good.
And so again, it's a credit to your team emerging then. Certainly that's when we knew you guys had something special. And again, to be a top 10 seed, to be able to host these the first two matches the way you were, is if you could change one thing about the selection seeding process, is there anything you'd change?
No, not right now. I will say I had quite a few coaches call me saying that they were adamant we were going in the 400-mile radius deal, and I just said I really hope we keep the integrity of the draw,
Mhm.
and I feel like we did. So I certainly understand budgets as much as anybody does, but I like that we're keeping the integrity of the draw.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think certainly things shook out very, very fun. Do you allow yourself to keep an eye on the rest of the draw? Are you so focused, obviously, on what you guys are doing?
Um, I do look at the rest of the draw.
Okay.
I don't really pay attention to too much throughout the season until our conference tournament's over. Once the conference tournament is over, I'm for sure looking at the draw. Our AD and all of our administrators, those guys want to know what's going to happen, and the more prepared I am for their questions, the easier it is. So Yeah.
I like that. No, Chris does a service for all of us by making the primer just so it's like, here's, by the way, you're 342 miles away from
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
from Charlottesville or whatever the
Right.
number is.
No, they
Yeah,
do
so
an
just
unbelievable job.
yeah,
Yeah.
so yes, credit to them certainly. And you alluded to it earlier to bring in some pieces like you did in Vanessa Maeve from the transfer portal this past year. What is your obviously as the transfer portal becomes normalized, dare I
Right.
say, has your approach to it changed? Do you think you will continue to turn there as much as, it's in every class it'll be like, let's have two of these and two of these or whatever it may be.
Yes, it has changed. In my mind, up until recently, the transfer portal was and I don't mean this to sound rudely, but it was largely full of players who were leaving because they were unhappy for a reason that they're likely going to find at the next place they're going to go to.
Yeah.
And so I struggle with that. Like we grew up in a family where you don't make excuses, you figure it out, you deal with adversity and you come out on the other side of it. And so at the beginning, I felt like the transfer portal was just going to make it easier for our players to not deal with adversity. And for me, what I've learned as we go through this is there's players who are making decisions to come to school at an early age, and they grow up, they change, and their desires change, their needs change. Sometimes the coaches change, teammates who they thought they were going to have actually already left as well. And um, so I wish that more people would make home visit or sorry,
Right.
on campus visits, official visits, because I do think that that helps, and we're not seeing as many of those. But with that said, the transfer portal for me is now an opportunity for second chances to be had.
Sure.
And so a player like Maeve, we recruited her on the front end, but she wanted to get out of Knoxville, went to Furman, and then was ready to be here. Vanessa loved. She had so many great things to say about Kansas State, but she wanted to be a part of a program where the whole team was on the same page about getting to another level. And so that's why she came. And so when players like that come in, then on my end, when you have that second chance and the why used to be a big thing a while ago, and their why is all of a sudden huge. And those guys, they come in and they're sponges and they can't wait to be a part of something because they know this is an opportunity.
Yeah, no, it's certainly become a part of the fabric, the dynamic, and I agree with your approach as well. I just think if you are not comfortable somewhere in today's game, go find comfort. Like you're gonna find a
Right,
coach. The coaches are exceptional everywhere, and so I
right.
like how you framed it as second chance. That is how to think of it now. And yeah, I think about how different I was 20 versus 18 years old. I
Right, me
I'd probably
too.
stay at Michigan. I liked my experience, but I get it.
Yeah.
Why if others would be like, we had friends who transferred back, and they're like, I wanted to come back to my home state. When you're having those conversations, having those recruiting conversations, and I want to ask this to every coach during this exercise because I feel like last summer was the grand poobah summer of there is no way that player got that much money. There is no way that offer is real. Like stop it, and just trying to filter out what's real, what isn't. But more broadly to that vein, how necessary is NIL to those recruiting conversations? Or how prevalent, I guess, is it to those recruiting conversations? Do you have to offer NIL if you want to land a top 25 recruit, whatever it may be?
So this is going to be something you might ask me next year, and it's going to be similar to where I've come around to it, like
Okay.
the transfer portal. But no, I don't think you have to offer on the women's side. I don't on the men's side. I don't think you have to offer NIL to a player who wants to make it at the next level. Because in my mind, most tennis players, not all, but most tennis players, fortunately, grew up with a roof over their head, food on the table. They come from a respectful, hardworking family, and their need compared to those of other athletes who we know is very different. And so to me, if your desire is to go out on tour, I don't care if I'm paying you 60 grand to come here. If I can't help you get to that next level, you've wasted valuable time. And so I think on our end, we've got an opportunity to really help develop players and teach them how to be mentally tougher, more disciplined. We've got the ability to pay, tennis analytics 30 grand or whatever we're paying those guys. Like, so the feedback that we get and the way we're able to teach, some of those things you can't do on your own. We're going to have massage therapy and teach you how to do your prehabs and make sure the injury prevention is there. And um, so we can actually help in college teach you how to be a professional tennis player. And we need to teach people how to string rackets, and then we can teach you how to be a professional tennis player those first couple of years. But I think there's so much to be said for making sure you're in a spot where you learn how to develop and you understand how to be a coach on the court in your own setting, you know. And so no, I don't think you have to go NIL route. But with that said, I think you certainly have to be willing to talk about it.
Yeah. No.
And if you're not willing to talk about it, you're probably gonna miss out on a lot of opportunities. And so I think on my end, if I can understand why a player needs money, then that would be a little bit different than just offering any player any dollar amount.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, you're talking to someone who not only does not know how to string, I'll be honest. I mean, do I know how to do it? It's a freaking circle. I have never gripped a racket in my life.
No.
No, and let me explain why. Because it's so stupid. Um, Look, I pride myself on being charming. And it's like, I know this coach is going to do it better than I will. So let me just put on a stupid smile on
Um,
my face and be like, hey, coach, like, do you mind? And then it's just like,
this
now.
this was Alana.
I
This
like.
was Alana last year. Hey, Mati, here you go. And I mean, we would crack up, you know, whereas Ezzy is like gripping her racket was part of her ritual.
I
That's too funny.
quite incompetent. I like. I wish where you want to know where I get it from. I lived with Westoff for 4 years. Obviously, we moved houses at one point, and I helped him hook up the dryer. And I was telling this
Oh,
story to my dad, and my dad essentially accused me of witchcraft. He's like, "There is no way you hooked up a dryer." He's like, "I'm like, actually, Dad, it really wasn't that hard." He's like, "Stop it! Like, this is ridiculous."
yep.
And so not a handy family. We're hands to the brain family.
I
But
like it. It's
yeah,
good.
so I agree. That is part of growing up. Things you have to learn, and certainly. I guess in this spirit, we're having a few fun questions to end some things we learned this year. One of my favorite videos that emerged across any tennis thing that happened in 2025, and I appreciate your role in this video as well. You
I have
got to be,
no clue what you're about to say.
okay, this is good. You got to be on hand when the Tennessee Hall of Fame came and told Chris Woodruff, "Congratulations, Chris, you are part of the Hall of Fame." And to just see him kind of be like, "Oh, okay." Like, I mean, you
Yeah.
could tell he was honored, but he was like, "Yeah, okay. Like, cool. I appreciate it." What was your reaction? I saw you. You were like, "Chris, you're a freaking Hall of Famer." Like, I saw you
Well,
ready to get, like, be like, "This is
two
nuts."
things. Um, man, I can't remember his name at the second, but like he just got that job. And so he comes over. I thought that we were all introducing ourselves to him. I didn't even know that they were coming to honor Chris. And I apparently was the only one who they didn't tell. The rest of the room knew exactly what was going on. So I'm getting ready to get up and I'm like, hold up, something's different. And then they tell Chris, and I'm laughing, thinking, how is someone not gonna give us a heads up? And then also Chris, that's huge, you know, and Jen, his wife, was right there. And man, I mean, Chris, obviously his resume speaks for itself, but he's done an outstanding job. And yeah, so I love that the state of Tennessee is recognizing him and excited for him.
I think you were more excited than he was. Like, it was,
I mean, yeah.
yeah, you were
You know,
jumping up
he
and
was just
down.
he was excited he had matching socks on that morning or something. Just kidding, Woody. We didn't see
Yeah, no, I
that.
love that. And obviously, speaking of the men's team, I could not let you go without asking. You got to be there. Like, I
It
was
was
on the call for it,
unbelievable.
but you were there. They're down 3-0. Krug serves for the match twice on court number 5. Obviously, it's 5-love. Dukes Rodinas leads at 1 over Alex Kotsin. Talk me through. Like, what was that like to be there in person, that comeback?
It was unbelievable. Our athletic director and his wife come, and I'm holding my baby up top, you know. And so he looks at me and he's like, "Can we come back from this?" You know, and I'm like, "Man, this is going to be tough." And the reason I felt it was going to be tough is because Shansuki lost the first, like,
Yeah,
0 or 1.
yeah.
That's not normal, you know. Ian down on the end, he had so many opportunities in the first set, doesn't win it, but you knew he could. And so I'm like, this is going to be hard. But with that said, this is how this Tennessee men's team keeps winning matches all year long, you know. And Duke is talented, so they knew that Duke was going to be very good coming in. And so you know, Alex and Shansuki have a chance against anyone in the country, but Shun down in that first set. So I'm like, this is going to be hard. And Danny, you know, I'm like, but they can do it. And Danny's like, yeah, we're gonna do this. And so Danny and his wife sit down and they watch all of us. You couldn't leave, right? And so we're down 3-0. And then I start looking around thinking, if Ian and Shun can actually put these 2 points on the board before Yan starts his third set, Now all of a sudden that could change a little bit, and because Yan's good, but yeah, Duke obviously had chances to close it out. I can't imagine that feeling right now for those guys, but being on the other side of it with Tennessee, it was special and it was exciting and it was likely something we will never see again because now all of a sudden as we're watching Yan, what looks like he might have a chance to win this match, but now Alex is 0-2, 0-3, 0-4 and I'm like, "Oh no, like we are gonna get this point." And then Alex is in a tough spot, and I don't know if anyone's come back from 0-5 at the one spot to win. And then he stayed so calm and collective with himself, and you could see the Duke player was playing his forehand, was stretching him out wide over and over, and all of a sudden he just got in his lefty cross court. I'm like, well, wait a second, what's happening? And so I think yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna speak for Duke, who knows? But on our end, for Alex just to stay calm and he kept at it. And then I don't know if you could see the boys on your camera, but the boys on the court adjacent to them, I mean, it was like the Super Bowl. It was amazing. And then you got Woody over there on that side, and Woody's wife up top, be like, I can't watch this. This is amazing. Woody's son next to me, like leading chants. I mean. It was so exciting. The fans were unreal. No one left. Baseball's down the road playing, and everyone stayed and watched and just cheered the guys on. And all of a sudden, when Alex got to was he at 40 love in that
Mhm.
last game, and then 40-15,
For-
40-30 deuce, and we're like, oh my God, come on, buddy. And it was unbelievable. I mean, so unbelievable. Instead of leaving and getting my son home to nap, I literally drove the car up to the front, turned it on, and FaceTimed myself with my other phone so that he could nap in the car because I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
No, it was a special match to watch. I'm sure it gets back to the theory of it was probably harder to watch that match than coach that match like you had to do 5 times in last year's NCAA tournament. It's just so stressful.
Yeah, I literally said during that I would prefer to be a player than coach or fan in these situations. Just give me the racket and let me play tennis. At least I feel like I can somehow manage the outcome, you
The
know?
third party vested interest is the toughest position in tennis. I've said that for years. Well, my last question to you before I let you go. You guys had the chance to play Virginia. Obviously, earlier this year at the National Indoors, they were able to knock you out 4-2 at that event. Obviously, it's many months later for a team that
Yeah.
has gone through an SEC season and had the chance to gel, comes in as the number 10 seed to Charlottesville. I'm curious what you view as Virginia's biggest strength and what you think it's going to take for your team to knock them off.
Virginia's biggest strength is they're well coached. They've won a lot of tennis matches and they're fearless on the doubles court for sure. So those three things we know for a fact. In terms of what it's going to take for us to knock them off, I think that we have been preparing and will continue to prepare to get ready to win that doubles point. And I think it's going to be a battle. And then in singles, they've got Chervensky in this time. They didn't last time, and we've got Francesca in this time, and we didn't last time. So there's going to be a little bit of new stuff here or there. Their lineup is pretty different in the top three spots, so none of those will be the same matchups. But yeah, I mean, look, we respect them a ton, but our biggest strength is literally for the first time all year, our entire team feels like we are playing the best tennis and we're on the same page, and that is an exciting feeling, and we're healthy. And those things haven't happened all year long, and so our team is in the best spot we've been, and now we get to go have some fun, and we enjoy being underdogs, and we certainly are in this setting. So yeah, we'll look forward to just going out and competing and doing what Tennessee does best.
No, I can't wait to watch it. I made it a point to try and hog it on my own personal broadcast so that I get the
We
chance
hope
to be on
so.
the call for that one. And
Perfect.
if my old theory of the 2 points should play 1 point before the match starts to figure out who's serving where, this is the perfect match for it. With you and Sarah, like two greats here in 21st century college tennis.
Uh,
Yeah, again, start the competition. Let's rock and roll. Coach Alison Ojeda, obviously, thank you for taking the time to chat. Always a pleasure to watch you and the Vols compete, and very much looking forward to watching you here in the Sweet 16.
thank you, Alex. I appreciate you having us on.